Welcome to the Folk School on Willow Creek, featuring University Distinguished Professor Tom Ezern, singing and telling stories from the Salon on Willow Creek.
I need a bed for the night, boys, and my horses need hay. I've been riding that grub line on the hot-dished highway. Kind friends, if you will listen, the story I will tell is of a great tornado you all remember well. It struck the town of McKinney on the 3rd day of May. A portion of our city was completely swept away. A portion of our city was completely swept away. We saw the storm approaching. The cloud looked deathly black through our little city and made a dreadful track. There were ever so many wounded, and deaths there were a few. What seemed to be miraculous, they numbered only 2. The Veterans Hospital received with outstretched arms our wounded of the cyclone that caused so much alarm. Doctors, nurses, relatives, and friends, they worked all through the night with all untiring efforts. Some worked without a light. The cotton mill industry that works both day and night really struck the hardest, which left an awful sight. We heard the call of ambulances to clear the way with haste. With people suffering and bleeding, they had no time to waste. With people suffering and bleeding, they had no time to waste. Our city hospital area was first to feel the blow. How frightened were its patients, perhaps no one will know. The homes on Parker Street, as well as many more, were wrecked and blown and shattered as we'd never seen before. Sweeping down on Highway 75, South Tennessee, you remember the homeless shivering in the cold as on a bleak November. Our gymnasium over at high school and South Ward 2 was damaged as instructors of the highest skill so faithfully had managed. Now the welfare institutions have given a helping hand, as well as some of the churches who help throughout the land. With food, clothing, and shelter, we hope their needs are few, while they go about their daily tasks, taking life anew. Carpenters are swiftly working, hammers, saw, and plane. As always, our little city is proud to own its name. But here's earnest hoping, while their story we relay, that we never more experience. 1948. Kind friends, if you will listen, the story I will tell is of a great tornado you all remember well. Yeah, it struck the town of McKinney on the 3rd day of May. A portion of our city was completely swept away. Well, you know how much I love it when I can come to a session of the folk school and say, now there's one you probably never heard before. Well, there's one you probably never heard before, the McKinney Cyclone, a ballad dating from North Texas in 1948. Well, you maybe never heard that one before, but it's possible there were some tropes or lines or phrases that seemed a little familiar. And that's a little bit of a theme here tonight. That's a folk tradition. In fact, here I was just did the McKinney Cyclone. Well, darned, I've got this Ethel and Chauncey Moore's book, Ballads and Folk Songs of the Southwest, about Oklahoma ballads, and darn, here's number 163 in their book, The Sherman Cyclone. Oh, wait a minute, it's the same tune. Huh, sung by O.S. Townsend of Tecumseh, The Sherman Cyclone. Kind friends, if you will listen, a story I will... Wait a minute. Well, gosh. What's going on? Well, the Sherman Cyclone. Now, this is an early 20th century tornado episode, the town of Sherman. Marshfield, Missouri. That's the same ballad for a tornado. A certain time. And a couple other towns I've run across here. They pretty much... Well, the thing about it is, every tornado is different. Every episode is different, but they're all the same in certain ways. And there's a common message in them, too. You know, the terrific trauma, little bits of heroism that pop up here and there, stalwart individuals, or sometimes unlikely individuals that come to the fore. And in the end, then this pledge that the community will survive, rebuild, and be back again. And that's in the Sherman Cyclone, that's in the McKinney Cyclone, that's in the Marshfield Cyclone. It's in the storm at Heber Springs that precedes all of them, you know, for Louisiana ballad. Yeah. There's a whole variety, as it turns out, a whole family of tornado ballads out there, and they just move down from town to town because the tornadoes move from town to town. It's not true that a tornado will not strike the same place twice. Ask the people in Greensburg, Kansas. Yes. Well, and the news reports. The ballads have the tone of news reports. You can go back to the papers, and darned if you don't just find the same things reported by the press as shows up in the ballad, meaning the ballad is an encoding of the news of the day. Tom and Pete were the local columnists in McKinney in May of 1948. McKinney, in all its 102 years' existence, suffered its greatest setback, with the possible exception of one catastrophe, when tornadic winds struck the city at 2:59 Monday afternoon. Now you notice there's that reference in the ballad to the school being struck and how the teachers managed the situation so well. But the tornado struck at just short of 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The winds came without any great warning, according to eyewitnesses, except the darkness which preceded hail and winds. McKinney has been lucky, so to speak, being free of any great storms. The old-timers say its strategic location prevented cyclones or storms. In the last 20 years, those barriers, creeks and rivers, have gradually filled in, leaving us a perfect setup for the same feat as that of Melissa, Princeton, and other towns, and it finally came on Monday. Now that's that old folk belief that you can be protected by bodies of water on either side of a community that will cause the storm to split off and pass you by. Now that it's happened, taking the rich and poor alike, our churches, our industries, and our homes, it is up to us to show that intestinal fortitude for which we are known, and dig out, build again, make our hometown a bigger, beautiful, and more wonderful city in which to live. The drive down Tennessee Street, around the textile mills in the McKinney City Hospital District, through our once beautiful Finch Park, will convince the observer that we have been hit a little below the belt. Reports Wednesday morning were that there were 3 killed and 43 were injured, with property damage of over $3 million. Lower right, front page, little item. Officials from Sherman aid the city water department. Okay, Sherman had the cyclone, and they had a ballad about it earlier. Their water department came to help McKinney get back up and running, supplying water to the city. Is that a clue as to how the Ballad connection is made to 1948 McKinney? Just speculating, really. The members of the baseball club were called out to rebuild the ballpark since the city crews were all busy on more important things. City digging out of the storm debris of the reports. President Truman offering disaster relief. Yeah, all these tropes. And then I mentioned, little stories of heroism. You got to have them after a disaster like this. At Fanny Finch School, as the storm began to roar its warning and the sky was blacked out, 5th grade students began nervously looking at each other and then at their teacher, Mrs. W.T. McCaslin. The teacher calmly announced that Sylvia Simpson, a 10-year-old, would lead the class in singing April Showers. Bravely, the little black-haired girl walked to the front of the room. She sang calmly and confidently. She rolled out the tones. The other students joined in, competing with the storm's ugly noise until the danger was past. That's the McKinney Cyclone, 1948. Well, that's sort of our theme for tonight, too. The disaster songs, catastrophes. It's a catastrophic folk school tonight. They do have some things in common, all of them. And we, of course, have our share of them here on the Great Plains of North America. We have a little, almost a touch of spring today. You may have heard Angie, the history dog, baying at the rabbits that are hopping around the patio out here tonight. And you notice we've got a little light around us here. Don't be too sure, judging by the National Weather Service's forecast. And Dr. Kelly doesn't really fear the weather. What she fears is that it'll prompt me to start telling stories about the blizzard of 1990, April blizzard of 1997. Again. Yeah. Okay. We'll leave that aside. Second ballad of the night coming up here. But what else was on? What was on the agenda there? There was news from North Dakota State University Press, and there is news. I mean, hot off the press. Am I right?
We have all kinds of news. You're going to hold up a book.
I am. This
there
one.
We go.
Have I got the right one?
But watch where your fingers are so they can see the title. Big cute. This is called The Clean Daughter, a cross-continental memoir. And we just took receipt of the shipment today, so we have books in hand. We're still selling them at pre-sale price, though, on our website for 25% off until April 20. And the author, Jill Condell, is a North Dakota girl, grew up in Valley City with her horse and out in the countryside. She marries a fellow who is from the Netherlands. And this book is about travel with her husband. His work takes him to Indonesia, various other places, but also the Netherlands. And parallel, a theme running through the story is her relationship with her father-in-law, who, seemingly healthy and not very old, decides to end his life by euthanasia And that was legal in the Netherlands. So it's her grappling with how a person could do that. So Jill Condell, this is her second book. Her first book was an award-winning one published by Autumn House Press, but we're very glad to have her now with us at NDSU Press. And she's got a couple events coming up that I'm going to put in the timeline.
Yep, yeah.
So she's going to be with Humanities North Dakota on May 15th, and that's an online reading and discussion. I'll put that link in there. It's free. And locally, she'll be at April 30th at the Independent Bookstore Day here at Zambros. So
excellent.
That's what I've got for
this is a beautiful book. Of course, Jamie's outdone herself again, and we keep saying that, but she's just always on a high level of book design. Oh, they got the little
headband.
The little headband in place. I don't know if anybody can see that little touch. The generous margins and the interior margin, the
gutter.
The gutter.
Publishing 101. We'll talk about the white space around the text on the pages.
You just pick up so many books, though, that they just sacrifice all those production values.
Yeah. Well, you were praising Jamie for the cover, and I'm going to mention that it's patterned after the Delft pattern that is used on pottery and dishes from Holland, from the Netherlands. And I want to say, too, Deb Tanner, who does the interior design, she did a beautiful job of carrying that over to the inside.
Oh, yeah, like this.
Well. Yeah, I'm not sure that will show up so well, but some really nice touches.
It's gorgeous. You got anything else to say?
Well, if I could say it for another minute, I'm really excited for Denise Lodge-Modir, who was interviewed by ABC Nightline. If you look at the edition for March 30, you'll see her featured in an interview. ABC Nightline sent out a camera crew to her cabin at Turtle Mountain, interviewed her there, and also in this interview is Deb Haaland, Secretary of Interior. It was a segment about boarding schools, so just really happy for Denise to be getting all that attention. And this week, every day for 2 minutes on NPR, Denise was featured in 2-minute interviews about her poetry book, His Feathers Were Chains. All kinds of really good things happening.
Outstanding. I'll mention one thing. Of course, an old dog does pick up a new trick now and then. I've been doing some on the learning curve with WordPress and putting together the websites associated with our enterprises or rehabbing them. There's a new look at historyrfd.net. Dr. K, you'll probably post a link to that. We each have our own enterprises, and we try to carry one another's bags for those as they come. And then we have the things that we do together. And historyrfd.net is where we talk about the things we do together and our entangled paths. Shall we put it that way? Is that enough to say?
Entangled?
Entangled. Confused. You get that posted, and we're ready for our next ballad of the evening.
Done.
Outstanding. Disasters, our theme this week, right? And I can't leave out the story of Wilhelmina Geisler, the Martyr Mother of the Germans from Russia. This song, an original ballad, it's going into the songbag tonight, so we've got some context and that sort of thing to present on it, and then we'll be singing Martyr Mother.
We?
I'll sing it. You,
That's probably best.
But help me set it up, all right?
All right, some provenance.
Yeah.
Martyr Mother is an original ballad composed and set to a traditional German-Russian melody by Tom Eisern. It derives his work from the Tri-County Tourism Alliance of Emmons, Logan, and McIntosh counties, which works to preserve the historic culture of the Germans from Russia and promote it as the basis of heritage tourism. The subject of the song is Wilhelmina Geisler, who died attempting to save her daughter from a prairie fire in 1898, and more specifically, the embodiment of her memory in a notable ceramic bust by an illustrious regional artist.
Move on to the context.
The only surviving newspaper evidence of the disastrous prairie fire of 9 April 1898, which resulted in the deaths of Wilhelmina Geisler and her daughter Anna, is an exchange item found in the Bismarck Weekly Tribune. The Column Messenger reports the most pitiful death of a 12-year-old daughter of Johannes Geisler near Ashley from burns received while trying to drive stock to a place of safety during a prairie fire. The mother of the girl was also severely burned in the effort to rescue her daughter. On that fateful day in McIntosh County, Minnie Geisler was at home keeping house with the children, and her husband Johannes was plowing on a section some distance away. Seeing the smoke of a prairie fire approaching from the northwest across Dry Lake, Minnie sent her 2 daughters, Mary and Anna, to fetch the cows from the grazing ground on the dry lake bed. The fire surged, and Minnie went out to assist the girls who were fleeing in front of it. Mary made her way to safety. Anna stepped in a gopher hole, fell, and was overtaken by the blaze. Martyr Mother Minnie raced through the fire to her daughter, suffering terrible burns herself, nevertheless rendering aid to Anna until others arrived. Anna died on 11 April, her mother on 28 April. Both are buried in Ashley City Cemetery. Wilhelmina and Johannes were immigrant Germans from Russia who had successfully homesteaded in southeastern McIntosh County, then relocated to the place northwest of Ashley where the tragedy occurred. Likely because they were German-speaking immigrants, the story received meager news coverage, but it survived vivid in community memory. About the time of Ashley's Golden Jubilee in 1939, local matron Nina Farley Wishick arranged the casting of a ceramic bust of Minnie Geisler by Laura Hughes, director of North Dakota's WPA ceramics program. This compelling remembrance, crafted by the future founder of collectible Rosemead Pottery, is lodged today in the McIntosh County Heritage Center, Ashley, North Dakota.
To Wilhelmine about her Geisler, Christian people reach thy hand. Martyr Mother of the German, Russian people of this land, thinking only of another, she sacrificed her life that day. As she was immortal mother, lives still in memory and clay. Prairie Farm, McIntosh County, April 1898. Wilhelmina and her Anna died in a prairie fire that day, while Johannes labored plowing. Poor Anna fell to ground and lay. Courage and love her deed endowing, brave Minnie ran through fire that day. We sing the song of Wilhelmina. We view her visage cast in clay. There is a miracle that happens for believers, so they say. By her faithfulness engendered ill for the people of the land. Brave Minnie's cheek in cold clay rendered curiously warms to touch of the hand. Well, that might be worth a little prayer in Holy Week. Oh, set this up. I do know that our friend Sue Balcom is out roaming around somewhere on the slopes out there today, evidently looking for pasque flowers.
Oh.
Yeah, suited for the season for this story. You asked if I was going to mention my mother. I suppose I always do. I'm talking about the Dust Bowl of the 1930s and her recollection of the great dust storm of April 14th of 1935 and being out for a Sunday drive with my father. And as she tells the story years later, it has the polish of folkloristic tropes. We thought it was the Judgment Day. And I never heard this one from anyone else. Many will say we thought it was the Judgment Day. She says, we listened for the trumpets. Yes. Now that's evangelical Lutheranism for sure. We're going to be, for our third ballad tonight, we'll be turning to another disaster song, meteorological disaster. Woody Guthrie's Ballad of the Great Dust Storm of 1935. Dust Bowl disaster. Preparatory to doing that, began to try to figure out what did things look like to Woody Guthrie when he was holed up with family in Pampa, Texas, on that day. Well, let's try. We can give you some of the current reports of April 15th, 1935. I'll start off, Dr. Kelly, with the Hutchinson News. Black snowball from the north spoils good day. Mercury drops 58 degrees. A black snowball rolled out of the dust of Nebraska, Colorado, and western Kansas tumbled onto Hutchinson at 2:15 o'clock yesterday afternoon, deluging the town with grime. Many persons watching the billowing black clouds sweep in from the northwest feared a tornado. The storm was followed by a 58-degree drop in temperature. The entire west was blanketed with dust yesterday. Liberal residents describing it as the worst of the season. The storm covered most of Nebraska, Kansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Iowa. The air was reported virtually clear this morning, however.
From the Wichita Eagle, Wichita, Kansas, 15 April 1935. The heat that preceded Wichita's dust storm Sunday caused hundreds to hurry to the parks. The zoo was all set to receive the visitors, and the monkeys did entertain nearly 1,000, when all at once the dust arrived. The crowds melted without waiting to see how a monkey sneezes. Prize-wise crack of a fleeing citizen was, why don't they get some camels? They would think they were back home on the Sahara.
Roundup report from the UP, Kansas City. Dust maroons Kansas town. Storm is sweeping over 5-state area. Stifling and killing dust storms swept portions of 5 states today. They were the newest in a series of destructive storms which have smothered the wheat country of western Kansas, eastern Colorado, the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, and eastern New Mexico since February. The worst affected area today extended from central Kansas west and southwest, dust carried by northwest winds ranging up to 50 miles an hour in velocity. Dust clouds also billowed eastward into Missouri, southern Nebraska, and Iowa reporting dust too.
Planes fly at 20,000 feet. A United Press correspondent at Hutchinson, Kansas reported, "A black funnel whirled in from the west. The storm struck with unusual force. In 5 minutes, it was so black that motorists had to use their headlights. Human beings could not stand in the stinging blast. Airplanes were forced to travel at 20,000 feet to avoid the dust. Albuquerque was the first open airport west of Kansas City. Others reported no visibility and no ceiling. Santa Fe trains through western Kansas canceled schedules. The inhabitants were marooned in sealed homes. Schools were ordered closed until the storm abated. Amarillo and other Texas panhandle cities were smothered. The dust will cover all of Texas today," the Government Weather Bureau said.
From Clovis, New Mexico, whole Southwest swept by blinding duster. Traffic is detoured on the Santa Fe line. The city gets the worst blow of the season. Old Mother Nature, in her angriest mood, turned her scowling countenance on the Plains region and swept its prairies with the worst dust storm in history last night. Riding the crest of a north wind, great waves of ash-like silt from regions apparently far removed from this wiped out visibility, halted traffic, filled homes with a smoke-like sheen that almost precluded sleep. The storm, preceded by a warm afternoon and an hour of ominous calm, struck here about 8 o'clock, and for 4 hours dealt the hardest blow of the season, already given credit for being the worst in the history of the Plains.
Traffic hampered. Pedestrians marooned in drugstores, theaters, and other places which are commonly gathering places on Sunday evening waited hours for creeping taxicabs that plied the streets at snail pace, their headlights reduced to faint blue dots that penetrated the dust blanket only a few feet. Churches whose services were in progress when the storm struck were so fogged with dust that programs were cut short and congregations filtered out into the storm to grope their way home. Hours ahead of the arrival of the storm in this district, Santa Fe officials abandoned all attempts to move trains over the Kansas and Colorado districts, and 3 passenger trains from the main line were detoured through Clovis. The trains were numbers 3, 7, and 23, all westbound, which were detoured to the Plains Division at points in Kansas. The storm entered the state over the region from Raton and ranged south into El Paso and filtered west into the high mountain areas of the Continental Divide. The panhandle of Texas and western Oklahoma were in the path of the blast.
From Pampa, Texas, in the panhandle, daylight turned into inky blackness as duster hits. A whiskey-intoxicated man in North Pampa saw it and thought the world was coming to an end. He began hunting for a church and incidentally sobered up. Some persons became hysterical. A man who was dressing after a bath had put on one shoe. When he reached for the other, he couldn't see it, nor could he see his hand in front of him.
By the Associated Press, residents of the southwestern Dust Bowl marked up another black duster today and wondered how long it would be before another came along. Already cheered by 2 days of clear skies and a respite from the choking silt and sand, they were enjoying what started out to be a balmy Sunday when the duster swept out of the north over western Kansas and eastern Colorado and rushed on over the Oklahoma Panhandle and into Texas. Hundreds of Sunday motorists were caught when the dense black cloud bore down upon them at a rate of 60 miles an hour. Some Oklahomans rushed for their storm cellars as day was turned into night. Many motorists who attempted to drive through the cloud of stinging gravel and sand found that static electricity generated by the dust particles had disrupted the ignition systems on their engines. Residents of Perryton, Texas, where there have been 50 dust storms in 104 days, described the storm as the worst in history. Old-timers in Oklahoma and Kansas agreed.
On the 14th day of April, 1935, there struck the worst of dust storms that ever filled the sky. You could see that dust storm coming. It looked so black, and through our little city it left a dreadful track. From Oklahoma City to the Arizona line, Dakota and Nebraska to the lazy Rio Grande. It fell across our city like the curtain of black rolled down. We thought it was our judgment, thought it was our doom. The radio reported, we listened with alarm, the wild and windy action of this great mysterious storm. From Albuquerque and Clovis and all New Mexico, they said it was the blackest that ever they had saw. From old Dodge City, Kansas, the dust had rung their knell, and a few more comrades sleeping on top of old Blue Hill. From Denver, Colorado, they said it blew so strong, they thought they could hold out, but they didn't know how long. Our relatives were huddled into their old boom shack. The children there were crying as it whistled through the cracks. The family, it was crowded into the parlor room. They thought the Lord was coming, they thought it was their doom. The storm took place at sundown, and it lasted through the night. When we looked out next morning, we saw a terrible sight. We saw outside our window where we felt once had grown was now a rippling ocean of dust the wind had blown. It covered up our fences and it covered up our barns. It covered up our tractors in this wild windy storm. So we loaded our jalopies and we piled our families in. We headed on down the highway to never come back again. On the 14th day of April, 1935, pretty sure you can see the straight line from Sherman to McKinney to Pampa through those ballads, can't you? Well, Dr. K, other than Angie acting up a little bit here, anybody else acting up tonight?
Nobody's acting up. Everybody's behaving
Oh.
so nicely. But we have some stories. So MJ says no tornadoes in her area of Montana, but they do get 100-mile-per-hour wind.
Well, you get that straight wind coming over the Front Range, right? Yeah, Chinook time, it can really whip up.
And then Sue Wallace-Roll, she says the theory in Wahpeton and Breckenridge, that area, is that a tornado will not touch down because that's where the three rivers meet.
Indeed. How Lutheran, the three rivers meet there, and therefore, yes, all right. Well, happy to have people with us. You know, it's also, it's kind of good to be back in the salon on Willow Creek, isn't it?
It is good to be home, yes.
Yeah, we've been traveling pretty hard past couple of weeks. Where have all we been?
I've been to Philadelphia and to Denver.
Yeah.
You've been to Kansas?
Wichita and Denver. Yeah. At least we got together on that one. I want to mention events of this week. We've been running pretty hard this week here, so if we sound a little weary, that's why. A couple fine young gentlemen and scholars, as they say in academic parlance, defended their work this week here at NDSU. Captain Jake Morris, his master's thesis, and Aaron Barth, his doctoral dissertation, successfully defended their works against a tyrannical set of supervisors, right?
Well, I'm going to mention I sat in on a master's defense this morning
you
too.
Did.
Successfully done. So congratulations to Carrie Nelson.
Yeah, this is a part of, like dust storms on the southern plains and April blizzards on the northern plains and past flowers. Graduate examinations are part of the calendar in our life.
But it's great fun.
For those of you who are of the Christian faith, of course, we're about to enter Holy Week. I love calendars, don't you, Kelly? Mm-hmm. Calendars that intersect. You know, we've got an agricultural calendar, a religious calendar, an academic calendar.
That's enough.
Duck season, a lot of things. It's good to have things, especially when they start to reinforce one another. If the past flowers emerge for Easter, will that not be perfect here in the Northern Prairies?
It would be lovely.
Well, we're about to bring this thing to not a climax, but to a wind down, I would say, with the calendar ballad for this week. All these songs, these storm songs, I got to thinking about those. What is this reminding me? What does this remind me? Terrible things coming from above, apocryphal types of structures. And then I realized, all these songs, they interact with one another, but they also go back to a particular place. And it goes like this. I love to tell the story of unseen things above. You know this hymn, right, Dr. K? I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and His glory, of Jesus and His love. I love to tell the story because I know it is true. It satisfies my longing as nothing else can do. I love to tell the story, catastrophe and glory, heroic tales and gory, we all remember well, where the deer in the antelope play, where seldom is heard people of the Dust Bowl, waiting for the storm to abate. And Wilhelmina Geisler, who died for mother's love. There are so many stories that make our ballads of. I love to tell the story, be my theme and glory, to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. Where the deer and the antelope play, seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skyline uncloudy all the day. No, the skies are not cloudy all day. Dr. K.
We now conclude today's edition of the Folk School on Willow Creek. We invite you to join us again next Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time for more songs and stories.